I got a haircut. All right. Sorry for being slightly late here. All right, let me see. We've got a couple of things left to do about this story. Oh, yeah, right. Oh, yeah, I got it. I remember something important. Today is the day I'm supposed to introduce our class's cheat sheet. That is, I'll explain what it is. Many times at least in America, I'm sure there are no Taiwanese students who ever cheat, but in America, students sometimes do cheat. And to do so, what they do often is they have a piece of paper and they fold it in small pieces so that it's hard to see. And they write down the information that they expect to be on the exam, so when they don't remember, they can look it up. And I feel, first, I don't like that, but at the same time, my goals are not to have you memorize a lot of things, because I know you've probably had many classes already where there's a lot of memorization, and I find memorization to be bullshit. So you memorize things, take the test, and then you forget it. You forget all those things forever. And I don't want that to happen here. What I care about is that you're able to take the principles of literature in our class and be able to apply them. I don't necessarily need you to remember the definition of every single term on your own. Therefore, I set up this beautiful cheat sheet.
Cheat sheet.
Cheat sheet. Isn't that fun to say?
Cheat
Cheat sheet. Cheat sheet.
sheet.
Now be careful and don't say chit sheet.
Cheat sheet.
That would be different. I prepared a cheat sheet for you that you are allowed to bring to exams. And so I recommend when you come to our exam in week 9 that you bring this with you. That way you can look things up easily and it'll give you all the information you basically need. All you need to do is show me that you're able to use the ideas to analyze literature. So it's my gift to you. I've been working on this cheat sheet for many years, I think more than 10 years. Maybe more than 15, I'm not exactly sure, but I've been using it a long time. And I hope that it will help you as you present yourself to the challenge of an exam. And in this cheat sheet, one of the things I have is about plot. So let me bring you there. Of course, if you want to print this out and bring it with you that way, you can change the size of the words. They don't need to be that big. I use it this big so that people can read it in the classroom, but there's no reason to print it that big. There's the picture. Okay, let me introduce these terms. All right. The first one is exposition. Exposition is an important part of the story where the narrator will tell you information that you're going to need about the background of the characters, the setting, in other words, where the story takes place, and the historical context, the social context. It'll give you information that's relevant to the story about their backgrounds, their history, the characters, I mean. What did I actually write? The part of the story where the writer communicates the information the reader needs to know, especially about things, about the characters' backgrounds and situation up to the beginning of the story. Actually, I don't quite like the way I wrote this. It's not like there's one section of the story which is devoted only to exposition. Exposition can be included at any point in the story. Probably not at the end, but at any time before it's needed. It can include things about the character's history, age, race, personality, social status, and so on. We know already that the story is told by a narrator. Hey, by the way, a small thing here, this word narrator. In America we say narrator, but in England apparently they say narrator. Either one is correct, but I just caution you to be consistent. I mean, it's good to know that there are two different pronunciations available to you, but I recommend if you're going to use a lot of words like that, you should choose. Do you want to use the American pronunciation or the British pronunciation? Don't mix them up because that will be very confusing. There's dialogue, or it's really spelled dialogue with a UE, but a lot of people drop it these days. Dialogue is shown with quotation marks that look like these. In English, we never use these L-shaped weird things here, just to let you know, because I have seen people give me homework with quotation marks that look like that, and it's not suitable for English. Bless you. The characters are in the story, of course. Many times they're people, but sometimes there are other characters who are not people. What I'm focusing on today is the plot, which we started talking about last time. Okay, now here I'm starting the list of plot-related specific terms. That the diagram is going to show us in a visual medium. The first term is status quo. And the status quo simply means that whatever is normal, the normal situation for the characters and the location and everything like that. It's the starting point for the story. And this status quo is doomed, unfortunately, to be disrupted somehow. Something is going to change the status quo, make things different. Okay, the setting includes a couple of things. Oh, yeah, right. The setting is a good term, and it refers to the location, you know, where the story takes place, when the story takes place, what kind of social status the characters hold, and other related things. Especially those three, though: location, time period, and the social status. So just for a second, let's talk about the setting of this story. We know that this story was published in 1905 and was probably referring to the present day, more or less, the early 1900s. Where does the story take place? What is the name of the city? Yeah, it is Nashville, Tennessee. Okay. How about the social status? We get some clues about it. We know, for example, we know the kind of poor-seeming situation in which Azalea Adair lives. The sofa is broken, the table is broken, The chairs are not very good. They try to keep it clean, and even Miss Adele's, right, even Miss Adele's, Adair, sorry, not Adele, Adair. Even Miss Adair's clothes are old, although they're very clean. So it would seem that the social status is, well, it's a little hard to say exactly. I mean, in simple terms, it's hard to say, because it seems Miss Adair used to be accustomed to high-class living. And now that she doesn't have any money, she still tries her best to come close as possible to dignity that a rich person would have, even though she has no money, because her husband keeps stealing it. In general, though, this is a small town at this point in history, which grew up, years after the story was written. I was going to use the beginning of the movie 12 Monkeys to demonstrate the setting, but I don't have it available on me right now, unfortunately. I have another description of setting which I wrote before. This situation at the beginning of the story: culturally, socially, chronologically, geographically, right. In short, setting is where, when, how, right. Almost any story would have a conflict, something which the character needs to do, or something like that, that needs a resolution. It needs to find some ending. Let me think about this. In terms of our story now, we have certainly a conflict between Caswell and Miss Adair. I call her Miss Adair. I don't know why. I know she's married at the beginning of the story. Azalea Adair was her maiden name, which means her name before she got married. This is her pen name too. Okay. There are many kinds of conflicts, and these are a few of them. One human versus another one, human versus nature, the human versus himself or herself, of course. Humans versus machines is a more modern one. And the human versus society. These are all possible conflicts. There are other ones too. Okay. Using this beautiful map of Virginia, no, it's not, but it looks a lot like it. I've made my own little drawing here. We start with the status quo, everything basically normal. And they have the exposition to tell us this information about the setting, the different characters, and stuff like that. As the story goes on, we begin to have challenges to the status quo. Things that happen which make the story a little more interesting, a little more exciting. I would say, well, or you could say, let's see. Wait, let me come back to it. Eventually, the action and the tension in the story reach a climax, the most exciting and emotional part of the story. And after the climax, things are calmer than they were during the climax, in a passage called Falling Action. At the end of the story, we understand the mysteries, we have explained different things that are important about the story. And this section of the story is called, it's called in French, denouement. And the denouement it literally means the untying of knots, all the things that were mysterious before are all explained, and there are no more conflicts. And at that time, there's a new status quo. Things don't go back to the old normal, but there's a new normal based on the things that happened which changed everybody's lives. So, let's see. I was just thinking, when we talk about the exposition, we learn about the narrator too. We learn, he comes from New York and he's traveling down south and he's going to hire, sign a contract with his Azalea Adair. Right. But I think really the narrator is less important than the characters like Adair, Uncle Caesar, and Wentworth Caswell, the Major. So, maybe the thing that we better figure out is where is the climax of this story, the most important, the most exciting, the most emotional moment in the story. Let me think about that, and you can think about it too. What is the climax of this story? There may be more than one answer that people find in their minds because it's a matter of opinion. Right. Let me think. Well, let me list a few of the key points here. Let me see. Where's my... We've got exposition, status quo, exposition, rising action, the climax, denouement, falling action, and the new status quo. I've got this all set up for the story. Underneath this, let me make a new section. I'm going to make a list of the different things that happen in the story. I may get the order a little bit wrong, but I'll try to get it right. At this time of the morning, sometimes it's hard to think really clearly, It's too early. And in this semester, every class I have is an 8 o'clock class. Mean. That's just mean. Oh, well, let's see. Okay. We know that the narrator comes into town and we have that exposition about him, but I'm going to ignore that for now. I think that's not the real main important thing. It's just, that's not garbage. It gives us some background. And the narrator actually is important. I mean, the most important thing that the narrator does is to pick up that button secretly and throw it away, far away from Nashville. But that's not the main important thing here. Okay. Bless you. that's not right. There it is. Yeah, Ms. Adair, that seems suitable. For this, the purposes of this, I'm going to assume that my guesses about what happened are accurate and just list it that way instead of trying to go and beat around the bush and stuff. Right. This is not an exciting video, sorry about that. Okay. And maybe I should do these as bullet points. Oh, it's hot. All right, what we got? As far as I can tell, based just on my short-term memory, these are the main things that happen. it doesn't seem like there's anything that's very... Oh, by the way, this is going to be on your homepage. You don't really need to take a photograph of this or fill up your cell phone. But at any rate, these are the important things that happen. There's no scene that you would consider like a traditional, exciting climax with a big fight or a car chase or anything like that. But maybe we can pick on one of the events as being the climax. I would call this, although we don't see it, we figure it out on our own. Major Caswell enters the house for the first day and steals the $2, and the little girl, Impy or whatever her name was, screams or calls out. That seems to be part of the rising action, but it's not the climax. I would say also that these different appearances of this special blue dollar bill serve also as part of the rising action. This moment here seems to be a moment of good luck for Miss Adair. She signs the contract, which means she's going to be making money for her writing, and also the narrator gives her $50, claiming that it came from the publishers, but probably not true. Nice. There apparently was a big fight between Caesar and Caswell. We don't know any details about it, whether it was just a fist fight or whether Caesar maybe had a gun or had a knife or something like that. We don't know. We don't see any details, like bleeding, for example. We don't see that. It might be that Caswell is older than his wife. Not sure. But apparently there is a physical fight that they have, not just an argument, but a fight, which ends up with Caswell being dead. And his fists are clenched as if he was ready to fight with his fists. Seems to be. Now, nobody in the story that we hear from has seen this fight happening. If the narrator had told us about the fight directly and said, Uncle Caesar shouted, "Give me back that $50, you bastard," or something like that, and Major Caswell leaned back and punched Uncle Caesar in the face or something like that to show a fight. That would probably be the climax if that something like that happened. But we don't see the fight. We see the results of the fight, but not the fight itself. And just looking at a dead body is not quite exciting or emotional, especially because we don't really like Caswell. But yeah, if the fight seems to have been, I'm trying to say it, but it's going to come out soon. Oh, I beg your pardon, I'm a little tired. We know that the fight happened, which would have been the climax. It's hard to get excited about a fight that's already over, though. Also, have been a climax. But again, the narrator avoids telling us details. I don't like the breathy sound. This might have been a thing, but the narrator doesn't tell us the detail that's important. The round thing that falls out of Caswell's hand is that button, that one button that we know about. The narrator could have done something like this. As I was looking down at Major Caswell's fist, it suddenly opened, and a large yellow button fell out of his hand. I took a deep breath. This must be Caesar's button. Looking around from side to side, I noticed that nobody was watching me. I put my foot over the button and then picked it up a little bit later and stuck it in my pocket. That might have been more like a traditional climax. But he doesn't tell us what the round thing is until later. So again, he kind of avoids a climax. The climaxes are kind of hinted at, but never shown to us directly, which makes the story a little bit unusual. However, I actually like the way that O. Henry, the story writer, handled this instead of being very obvious and telling us, I bet that Major Caswell was attacked by Uncle Caesar. My gosh, this old man fighting against this large, heavy man. He never says that. So it's a little hard to say. The most meaningful moment actually is when the narrator throws that button away. And that's not even so much about the main characters, it's more about the narrator himself. The narrator's decision to keep Uncle Caesar safe from the police, which would save Uncle Caesar. It would also save Ms. Adair from extra trouble. I'm sure that the police would have to talk to her because it's her husband who died. But still, it wouldn't be blaming anybody because nobody knows who did the killing. We don't even get a new status quo in this story. We can assume that things will go back to a new kind of normal. It won't be the same status quo as at the beginning of the story because now Major Caswell is taken out of the equation. The conflicts that they had is gone. So that's it. Let's look at our wonderful cheat sheet for a second here. Okay, we understand the basic normal situation was for Ms. Adair and her people. Bless you. Starts off with Ms. Adair trying to keep some kind of dignity. Uncle Caesar is working as like a taxi driver. And they're used to having all their money being taken away by Caswell. So that's all the status quo. I think the rising action should include the different appearances of that $1 bill, the moment where Major Caswell takes the $2 from that little girl. The next time that the narrator sees that dollar bill, it's in Caswell's hands. And he says, I wondered how he came to get it. But he didn't know yet. So that's kind of a mysterious thing that makes people curious. I would say approximately, and here is the moment where the narrator comes back to the house, gets the contract signed, and gifts, which is not, honestly, the word gift as a noun is a word I'm familiar with, but I have seen people use the word gift, to gift, as a verb, and I'm not used to it yet, but I'm trying it out today. In other words, presents Ms. Adair, gosh, with the $50. I would think if I had to pick a climax, the climax, I would have to say, if I had to choose one, I would pick the fight, I think, although it takes place off screen. We don't see that fight happening, but we know about the fight. In fact, the person that the narrator asks says that there was a fight and that people thought the money was taken by thieves. Right. And then he finds the button and hides it. Things start to calm down. He packs up and leaves, and he's on the train. And I would say the denouement is the moment where we see the narrator's decision, which makes sure that the new status quo will be a good one for Ms. Adair and Uncle Caesar, and all of those people will continue. The end of the story is approximately here, and this new status quo is assumed. But it's something like that. Tell me about this. Let's assume for a second that this story has one of these conflicts as its main conflict. Please forgive me for that. The conflict between a human and someone else or something else. I think we could discount machine. I don't think it's a machine. And I don't think it's society because it's not that vague. Wait a minute, which human are we talking about? Which human do you want to pick? It seems to me that Miss Adair is the one that I would choose. Would it be the human versus nature, human versus himself, or human versus another human? To me, the conflict is mostly between Miss Adair and her husband, Major Caswell. Once Caswell is removed from the story because of death, the conflict is resolved. That's the way I see it. In case it's not clear and you didn't notice, this axis here is the level of emotion or excitement, and this is the timeline starting at the very beginning of the story, moving towards the end. Right. Would you consider, oh my gosh, time's almost up. Would you consider this story to have a narrator that's a first-person narrator, a second-person narrator, or a third-person narrator? If it's a first-person narrator, there would be a lot of I. But although there is mention of I for the narrator is not the main character, which makes it a little unusual, really. The narrator is a character in the story, yes, but he's not the main character. He's mostly observing things about the main characters, like Miss Adair. I would say, overall, it's a third-person narrator, with the narrator being actually a character, but not a main character. It's a little unusual, and it's in part, it is the first-person narrator, and actually the climax, the end of the story, and the conclusion of the story includes the narrator's decision to throw that button away. So that is important. It's not just by the way. It resolves the problems that they have. Okay, good. So next week I'll have something new for you, but I haven't decided yet exactly what it's going to be. But I'll put it here on our homepage in case you need to see it once again. Please visit your homepage every week before class, and this is the address you can use at any time. Good. And also, if you have any email for me, please use this address, the GEMAIL. MAIL. Right. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
中午见。中午见。中午吃什么？步骤学传。
大饭。好。对，是哪？明明又菜菜来，不知道，尿尿吧。
Okay, we're done. Goodbye.